Greetings, my friend. Welcome to the Goddess Breath podcast. I'm Dr. Mari, and I'm happy to have you listening in. Thank you for being here. Today, I want to go into the story of Inanna where she meets with her father. But first, before I do that, I want to just share a little bit from my last episode and how I felt recording that and sharing what I shared. I felt vulnerable. And I had a lot of thoughts after I should re-record it. I actually re-recorded it already once. I recorded it twice. I went ahead and redid it because I didn't think it was enough. And so I did it again and I had the same feelings. And I think it was just for me sharing so vulnerably of those times in my life when I was really struggling, and that not everybody really understands that, but also what that did to my self-esteem. And I didn't go into why all of that came up for me or why I had the feelings that I had, because it's not really where I was going. It's not what mattered. What mattered is that I was trying to express I can relate to other people when they're going through that. I could relate to my friend Seva, the interview that I had with him, and that I think it's more common than we realize. And I also had a little vulnerability around not giving specific exact statistics or kind of um, jumbling up on some of my words. And then I said, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be me and share my message. And my mission is to really let people uh, be more aware and more understanding that we are going through some changes and shifts. And I feel particularly that our youth is getting uh, they're getting like the ramification of all of this if we're not keeping up and paying attention to the changes that are happening and how that affects them. And I'm talking about even beyond, some of the statistics that I had come to even recently in 2024, that even 8 to 10 year olds are now struggling with suicidal tendencies. So, I mean, appreciate you letting me share that and listening. I'm just speaking really from the heart. And but now, just moving into this episode, and the theme that I wanted to share is, and then we'll get into a little breath technique. That Inanna hears a call to visit her father after she's basically she has her throne and she's sitting under the tree. And she knows that it's kind of a stretch. It's a trip to go visit her father. It's another city far away. And then what ensues when she goes to that to the temple of the God of Wisdom, um, and all about the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra is just above the navel. And this has to do with our emotions and our feelings, and it can have to do with feeling vulnerable. So, yeah, so let's do a breath technique, and then I'll go into the story in a little more detail, and then share with you some more about the sacral chakra. So, this breath technique is a little bit of a follow up from the other ones that I've done. And the other ones that I've done is where you're feeling grounded in the earth, and you maybe can close your eyes and visualize maybe the grass at your feet. Maybe you can sink your toes in soil or sand. It's connecting to the earth. It's feeling that gravitational pull as you take those inhales and slow exhales, and really connecting to your body, really connecting with your body, really paying attention to the breath, the inhale and the exhale, letting your shoulders drop, and thinking about that lower part, the lower center, the lower belly, and thinking about the area around the belly button, we call it, just above where the umbilical cord was when we were born. And this energy here is actually an energy center. So, really, maybe putting your hand there will help. So, just putting your hand right in that very center of the abdominal area as you inhale, and feel that movement of like you're blowing up a balloon. As you exhale, it deflates, but just feeling that energy there. And then maybe putting your hand on your back, just at the small of your back. So your hands should be opposite in the front and the back. And this is called the Dantian. This is our powerhouse. And this is where energy is flowing. Hopefully, our energy here is flowing and open. And we can take big breaths here. We can really feel the opening, the movement in our body. And we can feel this connection in this lower torso. And then also maybe then move your hand up to the diaphragm, just under the rib cage. And you feel that expansion and contraction. And this is where technically we are wanting to naturally breathe, is in the diaphragm. But oftentimes people breathe in the chest and the shoulders, we call it like a shallow breath up here. But we're wanting to get the breaths deeper and deeper. And we're going to keep going with these deeper breaths and doing more with them. But I just really want to have you get in touch with what this feels like, to really practice it. You could do it at any point, at any time. And it's going to connect you to your body. It's going to connect you to the energy. And knowing that you have these energy centers and that you want them to be moving, to be circulating, to be flowing. And that will help with the breath, help clear out any blockages. All right, just taking a couple more breaths here. Maybe at home you can just, or wherever you are, let out a sigh with that. Let some emotional expression come out as well. And that just reminded me that I also wanted to say something that was important about the interview with Seva from Roots to Crown, about being able as human beings to fully express ourselves. And when him and I were talking, that we are so civilized that we don't allow our full expression. We can become sort of strapped and closed off. And this closes the energy in our throat. It shuts our heart down. And then we lose our self-esteem or our confidence, perhaps. But what I'm wanting to do is, with the root center, the lower part of the body connecting to earth, and then moving this energy in the lower part of our body, even in the back, allowing for some opening, some movement here, and then being able to get in touch with our breath allows the opening of the energy, and then we're able to more fully be in touch with the whole aspects of ourself. And that has to do with expression. And in the sacral chakra, that's the idea too. And I'm gonna just pause here, share the story, and then go into the good and the bad of full expression. Okay. So imagine Inanna as a young maiden, and she's sitting under her tree that she has taken the time to care for and to nurture and to allow to fully develop and grow into a solid trunk with branches that are extending out and want to connect and want to begin. There's maybe buds at the branches, at the ends of the branches, there's small buds. And she's sitting under a tree and she's just sort of admiring her body and all in its fullness. And she has this realization of desires, that she is a desirable human being. And she's thinking, what do I want in my life? What do I desire being fully in my body? At that moment, she hears a call. And in this call, her father, she hears, is summoning her to come and visit him in his city. And then she decides at that moment, I must listen and go, even though I'm vulnerable and leaving my city and where I feel safe and protected. I must follow through and listen to the call. So she goes and she meets, and she's at the doorsteps of her father's temple home. The god of wisdom is her father, Enki, Enki in the story. And the doors open, and they're having this bountiful celebration with plenty of food, all sorts of displays of buffet type foods that are luxurious and delicious and, just make your taste buds tingle. And then they have the bronze vessels with beer overflowing and whatever drinks there are. It's all about the idea of that we have so much to celebrate as human beings. It's supposed to be at this, in the sacral chakra. Like, have you ever thought of, this is the time of my life? Do you remember or recall a time when you thought that or said that? This is the time of my life. That's what it's like. The energy in the sacral chakra. It's overflowing. It's abundant. It's like prosperous, and fertility, because fertility spreads and grows. And also it fulfills our desires. Food, we desire food as human beings. We desire to have our taste buds satisfied. And also drinking, so this is what I wanted to just say. We want to celebrate and have a great time, and Inanna and Enki are celebrating, and they're cheering and toasting with their bronze vessels filled with overflowing amounts of libations that they are just enjoying and talking and communing and they're sharing intimately. But then, there should be a limit, right, to that. Um, and, as we fully express when we're drinking, sometimes people say it's like the elixir of truth, because the truth comes out. People then, like I'm saying, you start to say really how you feel. And there's nothing wrong. That's a great thing. But then we're meant to have limitations. So as Inanna and Enki are having a wonderful time, he shares with her and gives her freely the powers of civilization. He says, I want you to have these. These are for you. I'm so proud of you and what you're bringing to your city and all that you're doing. These are for you. And he gives her the powers of civilization. It's called the Holy May in the story. And it's the keys to this, the keys to growth and prosperity and abundance in a civilized state. So Inanna goes and she leaves with her, excuse me, boat of plenty. She goes on her merry way. Her father falls asleep. He wakes up and he thinks, oh no, what did I do? And his servant says, Father, you gave away the powers of civilization to your daughter, Inanna. And in his wakening of his drunken stupor, he's like, oh, wait a minute. I need to rethink that. And he asks his servants to go after Inanna. And I'm going to stop there because that's another part of the story that has to do with the solar plexus chakra. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but just returning to the fact that that's what happens when we maybe drink too much. We maybe spend too much money, or we buy things we don't really mean to buy, or we give ourselves away to somebody that we didn't really mean to give away, or somebody takes from us at a time when we weren't willing to give anything to them. And I mean this in a way of boundaries and sexual boundaries, especially in the sacral chakra, and especially at a time in a person's life when they are vulnerable and they are not clear on what their own boundaries are. So it's good to have some amount of recognition that we want to have a great time and be joyous and celebrate, but as human beings, there is to an extent, and boundaries come into play here, and that's really important. Because when you're working with the aspects of intimacy, you want to be protective and make sure that you're paying attention and being clear with people as well, and clear about what you're expressing. So another couple of great things that come from this time in a person's life, or just the sacral chakra energy. And I want to say that when I talk about the sacral chakra energy, I'm not talking about particularly that person's time in your life, because we can return to those times in our life. And then if we had some trauma or um, experiences that weren't necessarily positive, that we can come back and return and heal them. And I think I mentioned that with the root chakra, then we can create our own foundation and safety and security, uh, even if we weren't given that as a child. And the same thing with the sacral chakra. If we've had emotionally abusive relationships that we realized had an effect on us, a ripple effect, as we grew and developed more and moved into our solar plexus chakra, and maybe affected our self-esteem or our confidence, that we can, with awareness, with breath work especially, breath work can start to peel away some of the things that maybe we forgot or are blocking, to heal and to then start to move that energy. And I want to say a little bit, and I'm reading out of my book, Unveiling the Modern Goddess, particularly about Carl Jung. Carl Jung's the analytical psychologist, or he brought analytical psychology to mainstream psychology. And also now we have Jungian psychology. But we're talking about the unconscious, and how sometimes what happens then is we do fully express, then we maybe have issues, then we start to repress because that maybe whatever it was, maybe a negative experience, didn't feel good, and then we start to repress and we start to hold back our emotions, and we're not as joyous. We feel sort of diminished in a way. And there's a point where Carl Jung says, well, he's talking about the water element in relation to the sacral chakra, and he's talking from his lecture that he gave back in 1932 called Psychology of Kundalini Yoga. And I haven't explained what Kundalini Yoga is, but it's relating to the chakras and this energy moving upward, like I'm trying to describe. He says, he refers to the water element as the baptismal fount, containing the danger of the devouring sea. Going into the unconscious, Jung says, desire, passions, and the whole emotional world breaks loose. Sex, power, and every devil in our nature gets loose when we become acquainted with the unconscious. And that we see a different picture. So, and then we start to repress, and that's when addictions start to escalate, and we cover up more and more and more. And he also goes on, says that is why people are afraid and say there is no unconscious. Like children playing hide and seek, a child hides behind a door and says, nobody is behind this door, don't look here. And so we have two marvelous psychological theories. Nothing is behind the door, don't look here. But that then you make abstractions, and there's so much there that's in the sacral chakra of our emotions and our feelings, and what people maybe have said to us that we don't want to have in our conscious, because like I said in the very beginning of this episode, we start to circle into self-doubt, lose our self-esteem, think that we're not enough, that we're not doing what we should be doing. All sorts of things can happen in the mind if we're not fully conscious of what is lurking in our unconscious. It's the shadow, it's bringing it to the surface. I'll be saying more about that as I continue further in other episodes. But really the idea is to clear that energy, to not have it be blocked. It's the water element. We want it to be moving upward and flowing energy. And this then creates this energy cycle that moves up our whole body and brings us closer to wholeness, and inspires us with our creativity, which also has to do with the sacral chakra. Creativity sits in the sacral chakra. That's when we begin to think and desire, what is it that I want in my life? Do I want to go to school for such and such, right? Everybody has their different desires of what they want to learn. And it doesn't have to be when you're youthful. You can go back to school when you're in your 50s or 60s even. It's that desire that you just really want to learn. And a lot of times people, after their family's been raised and grown, they decide they want to start a new career because it's something they've always desired to do. They've always wanted to do that. So always listening to what you're hearing within is a good thing. It may seem scary, it might feel vulnerable, but you're hearing it for a reason. And that's going to help the trajectory, the path of your life and navigate you towards your purpose, if you believe that is what we're meant to be doing here. I feel it's more than that, that we're meant to be here for each other, but also to feel whole and complete and fulfilled in our life. And I want that so much for our younger generations and our youth, and for people who are struggling with so many different emotional issues and trauma and all of that. So, yeah. So, whatever you do when with your inner work and clearing away any of the energies that you no longer need that aren't serving you, you're allowing a ripple effect for other people to experience and give them permission as well to experience that freedom. So I feel like I've said enough, and I just want to let you know that in the next episode, I'm going to be interviewing a woman who I have gotten to know, and she's done my breathwork and transformation online course, and also the holotropic breathwork. And so I'm excited to share what she experienced that really helped her clear away issues that were blocking her own development and growth and sense of um, fullness and feeling whole. So I hope you are excited to hear her testimonial and story, and I'll see you in that next episode. Deep breaths, my friend. Have a beautiful day.